Hey guys, I wanted to record this permanent seller buy down strategy presentation that I did last Wednesday for our lunch and learn because there was a lot of people who were unable to make it due to the weather, showings, things like that. We did have a good group and some great discussion. So I'll try and incorporate some of the questions that we got last week the best that I can. But I just want to get this content out to you to hopefully help you in this coming year in 2019. And wanted to go over here on this first slide, really what my goals for 2019 is I'm trying to add value to all of my partner relationships. And obviously, I want to do the best job I can from the lending perspective, but I don't think that that's enough because there's other people out there that are good lenders and they're going to get a loan closed. And so, really, on top of that, what I want to do is I want to continuously add value in any way that I can. And one of the ways that I want to do that is by doing these lunch and learns and alternating between professional development and products that we'll be looking at over the next year. And I want to start off with this quote, and it's kind of my mantra for 2019. I think this is a great quote for us. Compete in a way that your competition doesn't even know that a game is going on. And really, what that means to me is just taking our professionalism to another level, right? And our competition won't even know what hit them. And really, it's just going above and beyond. And I'm going to touch on this multiple times throughout this presentation, but really looking at yourself more from an advisory standpoint and not just an order taker and just or I'm going to also say or being like a golden retriever when a client tells you to go fetch something for them, not just fetching it but asking them a ton of questions to make sure that that's actually the right thing for them. Another thing that I thought was really timely in this quote here from the Wall Street Journal, they're reporting, and they being FHA, 26% of mortgage borrowers who obtained loans through them did so with the help of a relative. And that is up from 22% back in 2011. And two things, which is the whole premise for my presentation today, two things that are factoring into that is home prices and higher mortgage rates, which are basically just pushing people's payments higher, which is making it more difficult for them to either afford a house or afford as much house as they'd like to. And that's what we're going to go over today in the seller buy down presentation, is just how we can help homes become more affordable, or if we're on the listing side, help your sellers not have to take a price cut. So the next slide here, those three things that I really want to help you guys with is on the listing side, put more money in your seller's pocket and not do as many price reductions. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples of how we can do that. On the buyer side, we're looking to have the buyers be able to either afford more home by having a lower interest rate, or we're going to help them just have a lower monthly payment in the home that they currently would like to buy by buying down that interest rate versus taking a price reduction. And then lastly, and I believe these are in the correct order, is you as the agent get to keep more commission. And you guys earned it. I know a lot of you are showing multiple homes, writing a ton of offers, and you should definitely keep every penny that you've earned. So definitely want to help you do that and help generate more referrals. And we're going to do that by showing buyers how we are different and we're more of an advisor. And they're going to want to brag to their friends, I got this great interest rate. John was able to negotiate this for me and just get a great deal. And then they're going to tell their friends, and their friends are going to want to call you as well. So here on the next slide, if you haven't noticed yet, it's going to become more prominent. 2019, we're going to see a shift taking place in the market. Really, rates towards the end of 2018 kept creeping up and up and up, and we were seeing a lot of buyers that maybe got pre-approved in the middle of the year have a little bit of a payment shock, right? Because as your interest rate keeps going up, your payment keeps going up. And if their lender wasn't keeping in contact with them, when they finally did find a house, this could give them quite the shock when their payment, could be $100 to $200 higher. So definitely want to help with that and take away some of the shock in this deal. And also on the seller side, we want to help you guys, because the last 2 to 4 years, and I know I'm preaching the choir on this one, but the last 2 to 4 years have been on fire, right? Home values keep going up. my neighbor syndrome. My neighbor just sold their house for 300. Why can't I get 300 in the middle of winter when they got it in July? So things like that, just trying to help them be realistic on the value of their home, but also to help structure the deal to where they get the best deal possible as well. And then the reality of it is the shift is just going to be a healthy economy doing what it always does. Mortgage rates they're starting to progress back to normal, which is going to be in that 7 to 8% range, coming up from our historically low rates that we had, in the threes a couple of years ago. And then the housing market is just trying to get back to that healthy point, which on this slide kind of just goes over that, the health of the market really is the amount of supply that we have. So that 3 to 4 months seller's market, or like we're seeing right now under 250 in Spokane, we're seeing 1 to 3 months, which is definitely not sustainable, and it's not a healthy market. We'd really like to see that 4 to 6 month of supply. And then more than 6 months, we're quite a ways from there as the builders catch up, and as we can help seniors transition homes, then we'll get into that 6 months plus of supply. So again, just breaking this down for a buyer can help them and help differentiate you as a good agent and more of an advisor. Is just telling them, here's the difference. Here's what the market is doing. I love this quote: the sky is not falling. The market's simply doing what it naturally does. It cycles through. And as, home prices shift due to interest rates, it's common. It happens all the time, or it has throughout history. And so really just helping people understand that. And, not everything you read in the newspaper is going to be true. So trying to help them work through that. And it's a lot of emotions, and just trying to give them some facts to back it up. So here, more economics of real estate. You guys are pretty familiar with the seasonality, especially in Spokane. Every November through February, we have that Q4 where things start to slow down. And then we have that cyclical 7 to 10 years, where we do see a recession, and where the market starts to move back down, or more towards normal rates after it's been heating up for so long. So a lot of economists that I'm following right now are saying that 2019 and 20, we're gearing up for another recession coming, just because the market's been so hot for so long. And so just want you guys to have a little bit better understanding on preparing clients for that, as prices start to move back down a little bit, and just getting them prepared for that, and being prepared for that yourself. It's not always going to be like it was in 15, 16, and 17, where the market's just super hot and houses won't stay still. And we have to be prepared for that. And if you're looking to do this as a long-term career, you're going to have to be able to go through these cycles and really build a solid business base. So part of that, building that solid base, but we also have to evolve over time, right? So I put in here, the taxi versus Uber. Basically, if we're competing on price, we could fall into the trap that taxi companies did, by Uber being able to come in, undercut them on price, and making it a little bit more convenient for the client, or customer, whoever, to get, well, I want to get an Uber, pick me up right up front. I don't have to hail a taxi or call a taxi. Especially in Spokane, they're not as common. So really differentiating yourself, going from being the order taker or ordering the taxi to being an advisor, you're not going to fall into this price category, because if you're delivering extra value to your clients, the price, while it still does matter, it's not going to matter as much, and it's not going to be the only thing that you're being dictated upon. And I hope that makes sense. And, we had a good discussion in the Lunch and Learn about, just trying to show how you are adding value, and really having a unique value proposition, when you're doing a listing appointment, what you're bringing to the table above and beyond the next person, and really just showing that you do a lot more than just what the 3% is. Because a lot of people, They get caught up on that number, and when you're just competing on that number, you're going to get undercut because there's 1% listing agents out there and 1% buyers agents. So, definitely don't want to lose out to them if you're delivering more value. But if you're not explaining that to the client, then that's something that you really need to work on, is putting those into words. How do I help you, and why am I worth the 3%, basically? And so, kind of like I touched on the beginning of this, is, I see it as either being an order taker or being a sales professional. My background is in banking. So before I came to work for Fairway, I worked for a major bank in town for about 7 years. And one of the things that I constantly would drill into my bankers and tellers was, we're not order takers. You need to set yourself apart as a sales professional. And what that means is somebody walks in and says, hey, I want to open up a checking account. Well, that's great. And maybe we'll get to that point where you actually do need a checking account. But let me start off by asking you some questions. What are your goals? What are some other things that I can maybe uncover that they would find valuable? So instead of just starting the process of opening up a checking account and letting them walk out with their new checking account number, we set ourselves apart by saying, well, why do you want that? What are you going to be doing with it? And what are some other ways that we can add value? And really, at the end of the day, by being a sales professional, you're going to uncover those unforeseen, information, or, maybe somebody tells you they want this specific house in this specific neighborhood, but you're unable to uncover, maybe another neighborhood that has what that neighborhood does that they didn't know about. And that's why they're using you as their realtor. So really, it's trying to differentiate yourself. Again, I know I keep saying that, but it's trying to create more of a sales professional attitude, and really treating this, as a business, and you're the professional, and that's why they're coming to you for help. And so, hope that part makes sense too. And just trying to help you guys really get into that mindset when you're meeting with a new client for the first time, is establishing yourself as a sales professional and not being afraid to ask questions, or if they tell you they want something, pushing back a little bit, and or asking, well, what makes that important to you? I know you want 2 bathrooms. If we were able to find 1.5 bathrooms, or things like that, just continuously asking more questions to try and uncover the real emotions behind why they're saying something. And this is all, helping you present more than price, right? You're trying to add more value, and really just become that sales professional. So on this page, we can start looking at the seller buy down and how that works. And on the listing side of things, pull this up here. So so on the listing side, here's an actual listing here in Spokane that I did one of these for. And I was just trying to help the listing agent add value to her seller by saying, okay, the house has been sitting for a little while, and we may be looking at a price reduction. Well, what's our other option than doing a price reduction? Okay. Or, we get this lower offer than where we're at. Here in this case, we're looking at a $620,000 home is the listing price. And, maybe they're getting a 5% lower offer, or they're looking at dropping the price by 5%. So what this presentation is really showing is at 620, and this was a couple of months ago, so rates were a little bit higher. The client on the buyer side would be looking at a $2,637.22 payment. Okay, and then cash out of pocket is going to be a little bit over 135,000. So typically, as a buyer, if all we're thinking about is price, they're wanting to get a lower price for this home, and so they may be willing to offer 5% less. So 589, 620 minus 5%. Still looking at that same interest rate. That enables them to drop their payment by about $72 a month, which is good. And then their cash out of pocket, since they're paying less for the house, is going to be a little bit closer to 117, 118. Okay. And that's good, right? They're getting a lower price, they're dropping their payment, and they're probably going to be happy with that. Well, let's take it a step further and think outside of the box. Now, on the listing side, you obviously don't want to take a 5% haircut, right? So let's say you could counter back in this scenario with, well, instead of giving you 5% off of the purchase price, we're going to pay 3% towards your buyer's closing costs. And with that, they can buy down the interest rate 1 full percent. Okay, so here in this third column, we're sticking with the $620,000 purchase price, getting our interest rate down to 4.125 instead of that 5 1/8. And then what that does to the payment here, it's actually $289 less a month on their payment by lowering that interest rate. So they're still paying that $620 for the house, but their payment is far less. And actually, it's in this fourth column, what I did was I made the payment the same as the 3% buy down to show how much you'd actually have to pay for the home. You'd have to lowball all the way down to $539,000 at that 5.125 interest rate to get the same payment. So that's way better on a monthly basis from a buyer's aspect. Plus, this seller is only giving 3%, whereas the buyer had asked for 5% in reduction. So they're going to net more money in their pocket. You as the agent's going to get a higher commission because it's based on that 620 sales price. Plus the buyer every month is going to save $289 on their payment. And then over here on the right at the 5-year mark, they're going to save almost $24,000 by going with that option, because they're paying so much less per month at a lower interest rate. So this was a really good scenario that I wanted to show you guys from the listing side. And I can definitely contour these to any scenario. Obviously, the higher the purchase price, the bigger these numbers are. But as you can see on this next one, there's a lower end scenario. And this is on the buyer side. Put this up here. So this was a VA buyer we had here in town. The home had been on the market for a little while, and so our buyer, I was talking to him about the house. He wanted to make an offer on it, and he said, "Well, I think we want to offer $5,000 less because it's been on the market for a while." And I said, "Well, that definitely makes sense, and that's the first thing that most people would think about. But let me show you what the difference would be in paying full price for the house versus paying $5,000 less and then paying your own closing costs." So in this one, we're not going to touch the interest rate at all. We're just going to use $5,000 towards paying down his closing costs. And so in this first column was what I was suggesting that we look at for him. His cash to close is going to be about $1,779. Versus the second option is what he was thinking about lowering the purchase price to $180 and then paying his own closing. So he'd be about $7,300, $7,250 out of pocket here on the bottom. And really the benefit to him there is it's an older home and needs some work. And so keeping that cash in his pocket was one of his goals that him and I had talked about. And this was a way that I enabled him to do that. He's only paying $26 more a month to keep that $6,000 in his pocket. And what we also talked about is looking at this over the next 5 years. So over here, this orange, he's saving $4,300 by taking the seller's money and paying down his closing costs, which is, really beneficial for him. Plus, he still has that money in his pocket that if he doesn't want to, do certain fixes to the home, he could turn around and make additional principal payments. And I've outlined that for him on this as well in his own personal one. So I can show him how he could essentially make the same payment and pay off his loan sooner. So, so even on the 600 end, all the way down to the 180, it definitely makes sense to, instead of reducing the price, to just get some seller paid, and over the 5 years, it definitely benefits this buyer. And I have one more here. So on the listing side, on the first one, we talked about using that 3% to buy down the interest rate, and that was with a 20% down buyer, so we didn't have to worry about mortgage insurance. On this one, I'd like to show you guys a scenario where we had a buyer who, let me unhighlight a couple of these here to make it easier. So this buyer was looking at a home listed for $399. It, again, had been on the market a little while, and what he wanted to do was, his goal was really to have his payment about $2,500 a month, but he liked this house for $399. So the interest rate, and we're also trying to limit his out-of-pocket cash. Okay, so the interest rate was not buying down at all. So this is just at the par level of 5.25. His payment was coming in about $2,607, and that's with principal, interest, taxes, insurance, and in this case mortgage insurance, because he's only putting 5% down. And then his cash out of pockets is $30,237. So we said, okay, well, that would be a good full price offer. And he said, well, the house has been sitting a little while, and I'd like a lower payment, so we'd like to offer $385. Okay, so let's put that scenario in here. So $385, again, 5% down at that same interest rate. That almost gets him to the $2,500, $2,526 a month, and then a little bit less out of pocket. So that's a great deal. We're almost accomplishing his goal of being at the $2,500, plus he's getting a lower price for the house. Looks like a win-win. Okay, so we could stop there and say, yep, go ahead and make the offer. Maybe or maybe not, the seller would be willing, that was over 4% reduction in price, or potentially he would get countered back, maybe $390, $395. Okay, so what we suggested after running these additional 2 columns worth of numbers is, and let me walk through them before I tell you what we suggested, is on this one we could do $399, so paying the full price, but then asking for 3% back instead of asking for over 4% and a lower price. We could buy down the interest rate to the 4.875, and then that gives him a little bit lower monthly payment plus less out-of-pocket cost here. That looks like a really good option too. You're paying more, and then at the 5-year rate, it'd be saving about $11,500 versus the full price offer, and then about $7,000 over the $385 offer. So still a better option than our option 2, but in this case he's still paying mortgage insurance because he's only putting 5% down. So let's take it one step further and say, okay, well, instead of buying down the interest rate with that 3%, let's see what we could get as far as buying down the mortgage insurance. And on this one, we also threw in, if the seller was unwilling to give you the 3%, we add the 3% to the purchase price as a worst case scenario. So going up to $412,000, we left the interest rate alone and then bought out the mortgage insurance. And that accomplished our goal of getting his payment under $2,500 with only a little bit more cash out of pocket. And then over here on the right, the savings over the 60 months, it saved him a little over $1,000 more on that as well. And if we back that down to the $399, it saves him a couple $1,000s more. So really what this scenario shows is, our client wanted to offer less, which is totally normal, and the house had been on the market for a while. But instead of just taking that, we took it a step further and we said, okay, well, as your advisor, and we didn't say that, but we're showing him with our actions is, I want to advise you on the best scenario possible for you and your family. because I want to save you money, not only monthly, but also in the long term, so you can build more wealth with real estate. Um, we're going to look at all your options. Instead of just going with the easy way of lowering the price, we're going to see what the benefit to you is by trying to get some money from the seller and then buying either down your interest rate or the mortgage insurance. And in this scenario, buying out the mortgage insurance definitely makes sense in the long term as well as the short term on a monthly period. So had some really good discussion on Wednesday around this specifically, just as, a lot of, maybe the scenario doesn't even look like the house had been on the market for a while, or wanting to add a little bit to the sales price. And so that's why we upped that to 412, because, in a lot of scenarios, if you're competing with other offers, you're not going to get away with trying to get 3% if you have a couple other full price offers. So you have to increase the purchase price and make it make sense for the seller, as long as you add in that 3% or up to 5%. But it definitely benefits your buyer to get the money back to either buy down the interest rate or buy out the mortgage insurance instead of reducing the purchase price. And what I've on this next slide here, kind of what I put together is it's really a 3-to-1 solution. So for every $1 that you can give me as the lender to either buy down the interest rate or buy out the mortgage insurance, we're going to get $3 in benefit as if you were to lower the purchase price. So for, let's say you get $10,000 towards buying down the interest rate or mortgage insurance, you would have to lower the purchase price by $30,000 to get the same benefit. And so in that scenario, I mean, typically you're looking at lowballing, and you're not going to have as much of a easy time winning that offer. So really, it makes it a little bit simpler. And what we help our partners do is, if you're going to make an offer like this, we would put together this total cost analysis, and then we would get on the phone with the listing agent and explain, okay, we were looking at offering this amount for the home, but instead of that, we want you to explain to your seller we would only like 3% towards, or it doesn't have to be 3%, that just, the common one that we throw out there, 1 to 2 to 3%. We'd like that amount so we can buy down our buyer's interest rate, to help them, it helps them in the long term. And then we can show them the benefits on both sides, both the net dollar to their seller as well as our buyer. So hope that makes sense. Please let me know if you have any questions, but trying to make it as simple as possible for you. So just for every dollar you give me as a lender to reduce the interest rate, it's equivalent to $3 in a price reduction or a lowball offer. So it's kind of the elevator pitch. If you're talking to a buyer or seller, hey, instead of reducing the price or offering a lower price, why don't we ask for some closing costs, and here's why. So just trying to keep it really simple for you. And, if I'm partnering with you and the buyer, this is definitely part of my conversation with them as they're looking to make an offer on a property. And I really like to be involved in the process too, to just help make sure we get the buyer the best deal possible. And deal is not always the lowest price. So just like it's not always the lowest interest rate, because it's very common that the lowest interest rate in the wrong program actually costs people money over the long term. So looking at it over the next 5 to 10 years, or whatever the family's goal to be in the home, is part of my job as an advisor, to help them accumulate wealth. So, and that's it for my presentation. So I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this, and I hope all of this makes sense. And really, again, I just want to help you guys in 2019 become advisors in your role and just be that consummate real estate professional. So here's all my contact info. If you don't have it already, please let me know if you have any questions, or if you have a specific situation you'd like me to run the numbers for you. I'd be happy to do that. And I hope you have a great rest of your day,